lumber yard, which I'm sure many of you, some of you remember. And that operated until the late 1960s. The station itself was pretty much hidden from view because of all the outbuildings of the lumber yard. But then in the 60s, an artist came and bought the station and converted it to a private residence, which it is now. It's still a private residence, not with the same person. But anyway, that's the history of this. And we'll just leave it here, and everybody can look at it while we're meeting. Thank you, Kay. Great picture. Great. Yes. Okay, back to business. The next thing on the agenda is privilege of the floor. Yes?
I'm Ginny Speed. I live on Hunts Lake Road, but I am reading a letter that Ann Collins, who lives on Cold Spring Road, wrote. Okay. And this is directed to Councilman Flynn, Daxino, and Dewhurst. Dear sirs, I am writing to you in regards to your alleged response to and handling of the letter of February 8th, 2010, sent to the board by Mrs. A. Nielsen, a registered conservative, and me. It is my understanding that this letter was referred to at a special board meeting held the Sunday following the regular February town board meeting. The stated purpose of this meeting was to review and vote on applicants for the position of town attorney. You will recall that Mrs. Nielsen and I wrote to apprise the board of our concerns about continuing Mr. Vogel's contract with Stanford based on our interaction with his office during our tenure on the Stanford Ethics Committee. Although I was unable to attend the Sunday meeting, it has been reported to me by credible sources that you casually dismissed our concerns. Further, you questioned the timing of our letter, asking why it had not been sent during one of the two prior administrations. It is also my understanding that a question was raised about our motives, with a suggestion being made that we had acted at the urging of some third party. Beyond the credibility of my sources, I note it has been easy to believe the above based on your careless, offhanded handling of letters of support previously sent to the board. Addressing those alleged questions and concerns, I note the following. First, remember this is Anne. First, I danced.
I can't say, that's why she's reading it.
First, I danced to no one's music but my own. And in my experience, Mrs. Nielsen does the same. To suggest that we acted under pressure from a third party is to suggest that we lack moral fiber and backbone. In short, to impugn our character. Second, as noted in our letter, the matter the Ethics Committee investigated was an allegation of conflict of interest on the part of the then sitting town supervisor, Tom Kelly. The committee unanimously found that Mr. Kelly had given the appearance of a conflict of interest and recommended he recuse himself on one matter before the town board. The conclusions and recommendations of the Ethics Committee were both trivialized and misrepresented to residents by the supervisor and board, who dismissed the report in the most cavalier of fashions. In the face of the town supervisors and the board's handling of the Ethics Committee report, neither Mrs. Nielsen nor I had any reason to believe that either would give any weight or serious consideration to our concerns about Mr. Vogel or indeed anything. This impression was validated by the board's refusal of over the next several years to consider Mrs. Nielsen's request to restructure the Ethics Committee. Any resident of Stanford at that time should be aware of the above, as it was amply covered in the local paper, the Register Herald. And I believe most, if not all of you, were residents at the time. In particular, Mark D'Agostino should be familiar with this matter due to Judy Marrows, his wife, and the current head of the Stanford GOP, active involvement in politics at that time as a candidate for the board on the Stanford first line. Hence, it seems disingenuous, if not plain foolish, for anyone to attribute devious motives to our waiting to act until a new party and different administration was in play. And I do not believe you are either foolish or stupid. In summary, if your service on the board is intended to allow for resident input and to move forward the business of Stanford, to date I have been singularly unimpressed with your professed lack of preparation to address the issues before the board, as well as your handling of matters. A change can only be hoped for. Sincerely, Ann Collins, 273 Cold Spring Road, Stanfordville, New York. And Ann has copies.
I have copies.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't fall on anything.
No, stay there. Stay there.
Thank you, Chris.
Are there any other comments from the board?
I'd like to respond.
Well,
Well, we had a question that was addressed to Tom Chris, and myself, and I think it's only fair that we get to, at least I want to respond anyway. Let me first say, no one ever questioned the integrity of the letter. That's the first thing. Second of all, there was only the members of the board, Tom's wife and my wife, and Mel for part of the time that were at the meeting. So I'm curious to know where the information came from, or where the allegation came from, I should say. In terms of reviewing the attorneys, I can only speak for myself in that I was never even asked to get involved with interviewing the attorneys. I didn't even find out about it until it was all over. So that being said, what I had to go on was the interviews that were taken by Carol Hanlon and review that. And I also went through all of the board minutes from 2006 on. I also went through all the videos that were made available, so I could come up with as much information and see what the issues were about the attorneys. I didn't find anything in the board minutes or on the videos, and there were no questions regarding any improprieties that were asked to Mr. Vogel. So I'm not quite sure. I don't know where you got your information from. I could probably guess. But no one ever questioned the integrity of the letter. As a matter of fact, I never even got the letter. The letter had to be written during the meeting because there was a number of us that didn't even get the letter.
Mark, I understand your feeling that you want to respond, and you have it. The privilege of the floor is really not a time for discussion. We certainly can take it up at another time if you'd like to.
Well, as I understand...
As an issue, but I think we should...
Well, as I understand the privilege of the floor...
The privilege of the floor is a time for people to speak,
Right.
but not for discussion with the board.
No, they're allowed to ask questions of the supervisor. If the supervisor wants to answer them or wants to have a member of the board answer them,